Hi guys. So I got this deck like I don't know a week or two ago, and I was gonna do a walkthrough, but nobody really seems to watch when I do walkthroughs. So I figured I'd take a page from Erie's Witchcraft and plus do two videos simultaneously. So I'm gonna do a walkthrough of this while I do a VR to Miss Nefarious Aquarius, and she's talking about tarot is not a monolith, and do a VR to her while I'm talking about this deck. Um, it's only $4, but I did not watch the walkthrough all the way through, and it's a pip deck. Y'all know how I feel about pip decks, but I'm gonna make it work. So this is the box, and this is the guidebook. So, get this organized because I got stuff all on my desk and we're doing laundry and supposed to be putting stuff in the storage unit. Now, the only reason why I got this deck is when I do readings, I try to have I have two goals when I try to read. My first goal is that I like pairings or sets, not necessarily the art has to match. Here's the back, by the way. It's not necessarily that the art has to match, but the theme kind of has to match for me. So that's one thing that I have. So I have the Victorian Steampunk, and I have the Steampunk Wisdom of the Machine, and I got this because it was the only decent priced Steampunk deck that I could find. So now I've got to get like Victorian oracles to go with it. Okay, and the other way that I read is that I match a person's energy. So if I'm doing readings for someone, oh, I had that upside down. If I'm doing readings for someone, I don't necessarily, I'll get decks that sort of match their energy. That's just how I do it. And that's the only reason that I kind of got the deck. I should have done a walkthrough on it all the way through because, again, it's a pip deck. Maybe this is more because I think these keep coming across my eyes for a reason, because I focus solely on reading it intuitively versus, the meanings of the cards. So maybe that's a thing with me, but I really pip decks are my nemesis. One of the reasons why I read intuitively is because, well, if you're new, I'm partially blind, and a lot of times when you get decks, and I try to watch people when they do walkthroughs. As you can see, I'm holding the decks relatively close to my phone. It's kind of hard to see fonts and the print of the decks, and whether or not, because like the horror tarot, the print is gilded on that, and then I have to kind of get it in the light to see. So that's one thing when I'm choosing my decks that I try to keep in mind. Now, sometimes, like in this situation, I probably would have got it just because of the fact that I like sets. When I'm doing readings, a lot of times, especially when I'm doing my readings for witches, I like a theme when I'm when I'm doing decks. But anyway, one thing that's just really irritating to me, that just grinds my gears with tarot creators, is me personally. I like decks, I guess they're called fan decks, right? That movies and stuff that was around when I was a kid. I like the nostalgia of it. I have a lot of people that are, my age and Gen Xers, and they can appreciate that, and it's probably decks I would grab for them for readings. I just did a Gen X thing the other day, as a matter of fact. And the thing that really gets me is, why do these people need to make these decks pip decks? I would love to get the Dark Crystal, and I probably still will, just because of that. But and Lord of the Rings and Labyrinth, like, I want those decks, but they're pip decks. Like artists didn't take, whether it was a copyright issue, I don't know, but they always seem to make those nostalgic decks pip decks. Now, I'd gladly get Lord of the Rings and Dark Crystal and Labyrinth, but, they're pip decks. And that's just something that I, as a reader, struggle with. Now, maybe that's kind of my sign of, study more and get the readings better memorized, so that you do that. But a lot of times, you can't always see the print with the deck. I get, they don't exactly, I don't expect people, oh, this is the guidebook, by the way. I don't expect people to just cater solely to me because I'm partially blind. But that's just something with these creators that just grinds my gears. There's decks that I just got last year that I've waited 7-8 years for because I'm on a fixed income, and price is a deal breaker with me. And I wait until decks. The majority of decks that I buy for myself, I buy used. Recycle. It's recycling. Maybe someone needs the money, and they're getting rid of a bunch of their decks. Occasionally, I'll get decks from other places if it's a deck I really want and it's out of stock or out of print, and that's the only place that I can get it, then I get it. I started getting decks from those other places when, I started into tarot and they were, in my budget. So yeah, I did. I did. But, it's gotten to the point, and they don't come with the guidebooks either. And when it comes to the guidebooks, sometimes with the fonts, if I have an issue with the font, and another thing that I hate is those little white guidebooks. I can't, the little white books, I can't. The print in that, I struggle constantly with that. And it just, I can't with those little white books. I'm going to move those to the side. So that's kind of the other thing that I have a major issue with. Oh, I love that. It just really irks me. But with me, the guidebooks, if I can't see the font, then I can look it up in the book and read what the card is supposed to be. And another thing is, sometimes because, if you look at the card, and some books are bigger and the picture is enlarged, and I'll be drawn to something, and then I'll go to the guidebook and look at it and be like, oh, okay, now I get it. And sometimes I kind of am having an issue understanding what the artist is trying to convey when they create a deck. And look, art is subjective. Um, so I'll go and I'll look and see what the artist is trying to, what that artist's interpretation of the card is. So I can better understand what they're trying to say when I look at the guidebook. Because some people say that you're not reading it your way, you're reading it the way the artist wants you to, but sometimes you get kind of stuck and you kind of, you have to understand where the artist was coming from when they created the deck. So I try to keep that in mind a lot of times. Like I said, I try not to get pip decks. But like I said, maybe it's kind of a sign from the universe that I need to up my game a little bit and figure some stuff out. But me, I think it's just a sign from the universe. But whenever I get a deck, and it's not, I try to look at walkthroughs whenever I'm interested in decks, just because that way I'm sure that it's not a pip deck, and to see if the art resonates with me. But, I can't expect people to hold their cameras this close and do stuff one-handed, because the majority of the time people are way, 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 way up, and you're like this close to the camera trying to look at it. And like I said, I don't expect people to solely cater to me because I'm partially blind. I don't expect people to do that. But it makes things a little bit, a little bit difficult. So that's another thing that I consider. Yes, certain art does appeal to me. When I first started, I only liked like witchy fantasy type decks, fairies, that type of thing, fantasy world. Any Celtic decks, indigenous decks, animal. I was really kind of picky about what I got, and now as the years have gone by, my tastes have changed. Like 8-9 years ago, I never would have got a steampunk deck. But I'm kind of like getting into steampunk now with the Victorian stuff. So that's a thing, as you evolve, your tastes kind of tend to evolve. At least that's my personal experience. So that's a thing. And like I said, sometimes I just get decks because, like, I don't have a lot of sort of masculine decks. And when you have a man that comes up, you can't exactly go and grab a fairy deck and give him a tarot reading. They're gonna find that that's a bit of an issue. So, I need to get more masculine centered decks. And get, I don't have any ocean decks or any dog decks. So that's something else that I need to look into when I'm making future purchases. But there's some decks I'm waiting on for the price to go down so I can get them. Because like I said, if I'm buying decks for myself, I buy them used. Just because I'm on a fixed income. So, but as far as AI goes, someone such as myself who may be, and I've been kind of toying with it, somebody like myself who wants to maybe create a deck, because I have seen, to me, there's certain themes that I don't see a lot of in the tarot community. I see, like, there's some themed decks, like ghosts, for example. I've not seen a ghost oracle, or just a tarot deck that's just for the Gen X, the 80s kids, right? I'm waiting on like the music oracle, deck. I tried to get it. I kind of got scammed on it, so I'm waiting on the price on it to go down again, because that's a lot of like the Gen X music. But just that type of deck, that's kind of centered on like 80s kids, Gen Xers, things from that childhood that we had. That would be something that would be great for inner child work, but hey, that's just my opinion. So, I want to fill a void with that. But because I'm partially blind and I can't draw, you know, and to me, there's room for everybody in this community. And I realize that when someone sits down and creates a deck, that they put a lot of thought into it. Both of my kids draw. I was in the art league and such when it came to ceramics, and I understand, like, when you put all your heart and soul into something and it takes a lot of work. I get that, but to me, there's room in this community for everybody, and you're kind of putting a weight on those that maybe want to create decks and have good ideas and could really make kick-ass decks, but you're limiting them because, well, hey, they can't draw. Like I said, people such as myself. I do agree, though, that AI is getting a bit out of control currently, and we have no, what's the word I want to use? We need protections, and we definitely need some, we definitely need some regulation with AI. Not just for, for we're just overdoing it with the AI and the way it's spiking our bills, our utility bills, our water bills, that type of thing. So, I agree that there needs to be protections and regulations with AI, but there's room in the community for everybody. And to say that, someone that someone creates an AI deck, well, I'm not going to buy it. Well, you need to understand the person's situation. Because, I would love to be able to draw, but, given the fact they only see out of one eye, it would just be a mess. But, you're kind of putting a thing on those that maybe can't draw. There's room for everybody. So that's kind of another thing that I have. I wish that these creators who want to do the nostalgia decks would just put a lot more effort into it, as opposed to making a freaking pip deck. So give me a second. I'm going to go get the decks that I probably wouldn't buy again. Okay, so here's the author and the illustrator, because, I'm having issues with the print because I don't have my glasses with me, and you're going to hear the kids in the background, which is kind of why I tend to do videos at night, but the lighting sucks at night, so I'm trying to do things, during the day when I can do it. But there's the box too. Well, I'm at it. So let me go get those decks real quick. Holy crap, I'm sitting here talking and the camera just went and never pushed record. So anyway, like I was saying, sometimes I like a deck, or I'm interested in a deck because someone gave me a really cool reading, or I'm live when they're doing readings, like the She-Who deck with Arwen Lynch. I liked that. She's the author to the deck. So that's one of the reasons why I got that deck. The Witchy Wisdom. I actually was gifted that by Erie's Witchcraft. Lady Gravedancer was giving awesome reads with that particular Oracle deck. Wisdom of the House of Night. Phoenix Fire was doing readings. I liked the vibe and the art with that. So I got that deck. Sometimes people will recommend decks. Hey, I know your vibe. I think you'd kind of like that. And like I was saying before, my dumbass didn't press record, talking like a nitwit. Um, some people have recommended decks to me. Aiden Darling recommended the Darkwoods Tarot. He also recommended it was something creatures. I don't have it here. He's like, oh yeah, I like those decks. Um, I went to the witchy shop and I was starting to kind of get into more of the darker decks. And she was out of a particular deck and she goes, oh, you want a dark deck? Oh, here. And she's given me some recommendations. And yeah, I like those particular decks. Just like I'm saying, like, if you know someone well enough and like what deck you would recommend for them, I think that'd be kind of a cool hashtag to do. I'm thinking about that. But anyway, there've been decks that people who kind of know my vibe and would, kind of recommend to me. Yeah, the art is a thing, and being a partially blind person, I don't care if it's AI or I do it because the art speaks to me. And like I said, I know that there's people that work really hard. There's space for everybody. Um, and there's been a lot of decks that have gone out of print and aren't selling anymore. Um, so there's room and opportunities for everybody. And when you're talking about AI, you're kind of, some people want to make decks that would be good for the community, but because they can't draw or they can't get an artist, there's kind of an issue. But there's a couple pip decks I have, but they're not here. They're in my room, and I'm not going to go and hunt for them at the moment. Because I'm going to be moving all my tarot into my room at some point. Because I've got some in here and some in my room. Because I primarily, that's where all my video equipment is. So, and then I have some decks like the tuck boxes have worn out, and they're in those pretty Dollar Tree spellbook boxes. So some are in there for that reason. And then I've got my big red case because I put all my big box decks in there. It doesn't look all that pretty, but you utilize what you got to utilize. So anyway, decks that I probably would not get again. So this was a deck, and I got it, I don't know, I think maybe 2018, 2019. It was like $3. And Seth from Heathen TV was doing readings, and he gave me a reading with this deck. And he was like, oh yeah, you'll really like it. I really recommend it. Okay, cool. So I found it for $3, and there was like a poster in it, which I thought it was a poster. I don't have it anymore, but I guess it was significant to the Oracle deck. But, of course, here's the guidebook, right? Now, this is the thing that irritates me. Well, not irritates, but, so with this deck, you're supposed to, put up like a villain and a champion, right? And then you're supposed to go through and you're supposed to find the path deck. And then you're supposed to take the path deck, your villain, and your champion. So you're pretty much doing everything with this book, right? I mean, I get the fact of, your necromancy, not bibliomancy, but, some, like with my situation, sometimes, yeah, I have to use the book. But, so you're pretty much going and you have to look up the path deck, and then you have to go back to the book and you have to look up. Now, I like the artwork, don't get me wrong, but then I have to look up the villain and the champion and all of that, and basically utilize the whole book to give the reading, the desired reading, right? I mean, like I said, I like the art. I do. I love the art. I like this type of medieval fantasy stuff, which is why I wanted the deck in the first place. But when he was giving readings, he was only using the characters. He wasn't using the path cards. the blue and white card like what I just showed you. So I think he was just, doing the reading. It's probably how, like these things. He wasn't using these, he was using the character decks. So, that's probably what I'm going to have to do. But, or if I'm doing something where I'm in a situation where, sorry, yeah, I got laundry. I'm doing laundry. In a situation where I'm having to do that type of reading, I guess. But, I wouldn't get this again. I only paid $3 for it, but no, I definitely wouldn't buy this deck again. I don't think I would. It's kind of my want deck, and there's a whole nother tag that I've been meaning to do. I try to really go slow with my hashtags because I've got a limited number of decks, and you don't want to see me showing the same decks every single time. That kind of defeats the purpose of a hashtag. But I have one goddess oracle. Like I said, I like 2 oracles and maybe 2 to 3 decks for my set, right? That's just how I do it. So I wanted a goddess tarot to go with goddess oracle, the goddess oracle that I got. And this was brand new, hadn't even been opened. And I like the artwork of it. But again, and I did a walkthrough of this, but it's a pip deck. Not only that, some of the, this one I would have to kind of rely on the guidebook because some of the deities that are shown, I don't know much about. I like the artwork. I just hate the fact that it's a pip deck. I've got Tarot Familiars, I want to say. And it's a pip deck too. And I can't with pip decks. But maybe I need to start learning how to utilize pip decks better. That's why they probably keep coming across me. But, see, that's my fault because I didn't do a walkthrough, and I should have on this. And I probably would have made it different. But, it was $6. And it was brand new, hadn't even been opened. So, that's my thing with walkthroughs. And I get it about the art. So I make it work, but this is one I like the art, but it's a pip deck. I probably wouldn't get it again. Now, everybody, don't come for me. I was just getting into oracles when I bought this. Right around the time the Doreen Virtue stuff had started. So, don't come for me. That's not why I wouldn't get the deck again. That's not my issue with the deck. I love the back, but as a partially blind person, I love the fonts on it. The fonts are big. But these borders that she put around them and made the picture smaller, that irks me. It just totally throws me off. And she tries to get the color to match. But like this one, for example, like it's too busy. Like I can't. It's way, and some of the time she can't even, it's just, that's too much. And I can't cut the borders off because of the way she did that. So, I would have liked to have seen hey, if the deck didn't have these borders like this, I'd be all for it. But, like I said, I got this when I was just starting and didn't, but I've made it work. But would I get it again? Probably not. I have to get the tuck box decks when I go to the witchy shop because they're cheaper, but those little white books are also a nemesis for me. But like I said, I have to have the books because sometimes you can't read the fonts. But, being a partially blind tarot reader, but And this is, I think this is another one by her. I don't know, I've had this deck for so long. Let's see. Yeah, I think this is another deck by her. I think it is. But again, with the borders, and the borders are too much. And the white print with these color borders, it really, I can do black really well, but that, it's just it's a struggle for me, you know, and making the picture smaller, so it's harder for me to tell. um that's another thing that I kind of have a issue with. And I got this deck during the pandemic. I ordered it off of Walmart. So it is the Gypsy Oracle. I don't want to use the G word because some people consider that to be racist. So anyway, and I've had this deck since 2020. So yeah, the box is a bit, right? And it didn't come with a book, no little white book, no nothing. I like the art in it. I do. I like the art. But it's very kind of, you know, Victorian. I think this is supposed to be like a Los Scarabeo deck, but here I couldn't find a walkthrough of it. So here's an example with the print, right? So this is one I have to kind of do intuitively. But they sell the guidebook separate, and it was like 25 freaking bucks. So this is more something I am going to start utilizing, but I'm going to do it more as an intuitive read type of thing. And I have the Gypsy Witch, and there's the back. And I didn't realize, like I said, I got it when I first started and didn't understand about the whole lemonade thing and all of that, and the new numbers and numerology, and I just don't get along. So there's another deck, and I can't remember the name of it, but it's in my room, and then the book is a little white book, and I can't with the print. But what was I saying? But I got it to go with that Gypsy Oracle, and there was no guidebook or nothing, and you're supposed to do the lemonade type with it, but I just use it as an Oracle deck. And you could do cartomancy with it too if you have the cartomancy book, which I do have, so you could also do it that way. So I'm not doing the lemonade with it. I do it more like Oracle and cartomancy type of thing. But the print in it kind of stinks. So, but anyway, so that is my VR, and I'm going to go back and finish the videos that I wanted to do, but I wanted to get, I saw this video, and I wanted to kind of do a VR to it. So anyway, peace, love, and light, guys. See you in the next video.